the self-fulfilling prophecy and its relationship to attrition. So starting off, what is attrition? Attrition is a temporary or permanent termination of participation in a sports program. In youth sports, attrition is particularly high, with about 70% of athletes dropping their sport before they hit adolescence. So why should we care about that? Well, as a youth sport coach, usually you want to be that positive role model in the youth. You want to be able to help them develop and grow into capable humans, and you're less focused on the winning aspect. You just want to be there to help them. Some benefits for being in a sports program are things like a lower risk for fractures, lower risk for general disease, ability to have a healthy life in their adult and elderly years, better self-esteem, less rates of depression, and a better psychosocial health. So, what can we do about that? Some various factors affect attrition, but one of the ones I'll be focusing on today is the self-fulfilling prophecy, which was in my title. So what is the self-fulfilling prophecy? As you can see, I abbreviated to the SFP. The self-fulfilling prophecy is a 6-step, sometimes seen as 4-step, cyclical process in which a coach's expectations influence an athlete's behaviors and thoughts to where they in turn confirm the coach's initial expectations. So you can see I have a 6-step label. The first step is the coach forms their expectation about their performance, usually for high expectations or low expectations for performance. And you will hear me refer to these athletes as high expectancy athletes or low expectancy athletes. The second step is the coach behaves according to their expectations of the athletes. Typically, high expectancy athletes receive more time, instruction, and feedback as compared to low expectancy athletes. The third and fourth steps are the athletes interpret and respond to the coach's behavior, which is different depending on their expectations, and this is a pretty important steps of the process, as you can see what the athletes are taking away and internalizing from the coach's behaviors. Then the fifth and sixth step are the coach and the athletes interpret this athlete's response to the differential behaviors. So what behaviors are the coaches doing? I mentioned some general things that happen, but in some studies, they found that both athletes, high expectancy and low expectancy, were able to perceive they got differential treatment from their coaches. The high expectancy athletes perceived they got more positive interactions such as trust, special privileges, and time, while low expectancy athletes perceived they got more negative interactions such as ending the drill early before they could master it and reprimanding for their performance. And so you may think, well, high expectancy athletes are fine then, they're not affected by this, they get positive interactions. But in another study, it was actually found that high expectancy athletes view behaviors such as leniency and favoring to them as inhibiting their development in the sport. So that's a big thing we want to just maybe try to not have these effects happen. So specifically, how are they affected by these expectations and the behaviors? So we look at the reasons for attrition to find this answer. So people are more likely to drop out from their individual or team sport if they do not feel like they are recognized, appreciated, or afforded positive feedback for the performance. So this shows commonalities to the perceptions I just talked about previously of low expectancy athletes perceiving they got reprimanded more and were not able to master a drill. So I made the connection of if you weren't afforded as much time, instruction, you were more reprimanded for your performance as compared to other athletes, wouldn't you also feel not recognized or appreciated in that sport? Another thing is that dropouts also reported having a feeling of low sport competence, not feeling confident in their sport, which led to losing interest and motivation in that sport. So I mentioned all these things that coaches do, their behaviors, their expectations, how they can affect the athletes. So how can you help this? How can you possibly not have these low expectancy athletes internalize these feelings, or the high expectancy athletes not liking these behaviors? So I looked into why do people want to participate? If we don't want them to drop out, why do they want to participate? So one of the terms I found was commitment, which is the desire and resolve to want to stay participating in a sport. Some of its major determinants are sport enjoyment, valuable opportunities, and personal investments, with sport enjoyment being the biggest factor for why people commit. So if they enjoy the sport, they are enjoying what they're doing, they're more likely to stay participating in the sport. As I mentioned previously, those who dropped out felt low sport competence and lost interest and motivation, and that has a clear connection with, as they found the sport less enjoyable, they're less interested because of how they were feeling, they were able to drop out. They were wanting to drop out. So we want to make the sport more enjoyable. How do we do that then? So one study found that coaches who were taught to use more frequent reinforcement, encouragement, and technical instruction, they were found to have benefits of those with low self-esteem were able to gain more self-esteem. There's more team enjoyment, more team friendship. The coach was seen as more likable by the athletes, and the coach was seen as a good teacher by the athletes. Another type of coaching that was also seen as good was an autonomy supportive coaching style, which is where the coaches focus on autonomy and freedom for the athletes as they're practicing. Some benefits from that included more improvement in their skills, success in their performance, and cohesion in the team. One big thing that is also reported is that the study about the positive coaching, those who were not taught to use positive coaching, they were the control group, had a 5 times higher attrition rate as compared to those who used positive coaching. They had 5 times more athletes want to drop out as compared to those who used positive coaching. So, my conclusion, we talked about what attrition was, the benefits of sport, what the self-fulfilling prophecy is and what it entails, and how you can possibly help to not feed into that process. Saying that not all athletes are prone to the process, the self-fulfilling prophecy. They might just not even have those internalizing feelings, and not all coaches are prone to using the process. They don't all contribute to that, so that's a big thing. But if you do want to kind of really focus on how your expectations may affect your behavior, this would be a good thing, especially if you do not want your youth athletes to drop out and receive those benefits they want. Thank you.
So at this time, we would like to ask for questions. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the presentation?
Can you elaborate? You said 70% dropped out for adolescents with, I guess, attrition. What denoted adolescents? Like at what age? Do you know the age range?
They didn't particularly give in that study. They didn't give ages.
What, did you pick this topic, and if so, is there a reason that you picked this topic?
So there are a couple topics we could choose from, but this was one I was interested in. I just thought the psychology of how the process worked, not like the athlete not even starting with this expectation, but due to the coach and how they behave, internalizing it and like fulfilling what that coach thinks, I thought it was an interesting process.
Do you want to be a youth sports coach?
No.
Did you have any thoughts on like feedback when you were talking about giving feedback? Let's say you have a high performing. This may not be anything you read, but your opinion too. You have a high performing athlete or high expectation athlete, and you start giving them feedback. Any correlation between their perception of like, oh, I'm not a high performance now because you're giving me so much feedback, or now I'm a low performing athlete or a low expectation?
No, typically if they're given more feedback, they perceive it as more time, more attention that the coach.
So even if it was like, hey, that's not quite right, like, let's see what we can do, they still.
Well, that would be instruction,
Yeah,
so
right.
Be helping them,
Okay.
because for low expectancy, they just wouldn't even receive that. They just like, oh, next time,
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm curious, did you find any comparisons from like sport to sport or like team sports to individual sports, like any differences there?
There's definitely, I didn't see any difference between sport to sport. This definitely was more of a team sport. For when it came to research, it was definitely more involved in team sports. I don't think they researched too much into individual sports.
We're talking about negative coaching, you kind of drive me out, negative coaching, what's that, what is negative coaching?
Typically negative coaching, usually it's a lot more, like I said, the reprimanding and not getting encouragement. Like, a lot of punishment was in negative coaching. So if they messed up, go run a drill instead of, you could do this, you could do it, here's how you do it. So it's more like trying to help them skill. Positive coaching is more helping with their skill, while negative is punishment if you do it wrong.